He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
This week, I've borrowed a friend's time machine to skip forward 30 years to see what things are like for transgender people. Thanks, Marty. Okay, let's see how this thing works. Turn this on. Put in the year 2051 and what does it say? Drive at speed till flashing happens. Alright, let's go! Whoa, that was heavy. OMG, I'm actually in the future. Let's see what's changed. Okay, that's new. When you meet a new person, they ask how you want to be referred to. Very polite. And when you fill out a form, there are no gender boxes to tick anymore. Just a blank space for you to fill in whatever you want. Consider it. Oh, look at that. There's free counselling services attached to the sides of libraries with no wait times. You just walk right in. And I know you're going to ask about bathrooms. Everyone asks about bathrooms. But now they're all unisex, and amazingly, everyone on Earth just learned to put the seat down when they're finished. Wow, we did it, people. We really made a difference.
Joe, your alarm's been going off for ages. It's time for you to get up or you're going to be late for uni.
Oh man, that was a dream. But what a good one. Kia ora, I'm Joseph Stockhausen, and this is the podcast where I take you on the journey about what happened after I came out as transgender to my mum. So if you're dreaming about being able to navigate this, then we hope there'll be some helpful insights. And if you're someone who just wants to get your head around the transgender topic, then buckle up, because the future is now.
It's still me, nothing's changed. Just little parts of me are rearranged. I'm still here, so are you. We've got so much growing left to do. This is more than just a kid and a parent. Let's be transparent.
Kia ora, I'm Joseph Stockhausen, and in this episode we're going old school. So far we've talked about trans and gender diverse people as being young, as if they all cropped up 30 years ago as a new species. But we know that's not true. In this episode we're talking to some old boys who are new to this particular transition of life, even though it has shaped both of them for many years. Luca Brie is one of these, a 69-year-old transgender man. Luca lives in Greyland, an Auckland suburb that has changed almost beyond recognition over the past 30 years. A constant sound of construction noise is just around every corner as single-level dwellings make room for multiple apartments, and you'll hear in the audio that constant sound of constant change. The idea of change is central to Luca's story, and as we're greeted by his friendly, fluffy Pomeranian, I have this overwhelming sense of being welcomed.
I came out in the 1970s as lesbian. I also had a son and a daughter with gay friends, and when we realised that was actually quite straightforward and easy to do. So I don't regret that part of my life. I probably, the only regret I have now is that I wish that I'd got on to this a bit sooner. I felt like a boy as a child. I grieved at puberty, as a lot of us do. I had an eating disorder. Again, I've learned it's quite a common experience. I think my realisation about transition started about 3 years ago. I joined the Girls' Choir, which at that stage was still quite traditional and very binary. I was surprised. And so they split by, I was a tenor, which was mostly guy, but not all guys. And they were still sort of doing a couple of numbers for the men and the women. So when I trotted off with the tenors to learn to sing I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair, which I really like as a song and wanted to sing, I got sent back by one of the older members to sing with the women. And I was outraged, not politically, but personally. And I just had to take the time to think, this feeling of ease I feel about being with the guys is about more than music. Because I'm not a great singer, I don't have I'm out of my comfort level anyway with singing, but I felt so comfortable being with that group of lovely men, and that I know that was a light bulb moment for me.
By this, he means transition, and being a part of the Rainbow isn't new to Luka. He was present at many protests in the 80s for social change, including the homosexual law reform marches in 1986.
You're down the drain. You're back into the sewers. You're back into the sewers where you come from. What we're looking at here, I don't love homosexuals. As far as I'm concerned, you can stay in the gutter.
We are citizens of this country. We demand our rights as citizens of New Zealand.
Just the thought of being confronted with that on the 6 o'clock news must have been scary for many young people, and as we well know, it contributed to many people staying inside the closet. And let's just say that isn't really a happy or healthy place to be. Thankfully, the world has improved, but it was more than 30 years after these protests that Luka had his light bulb moment with the choir. It would take another year of soul searching before he decided to go forth in his transition.
So I started socially by telling people, and the first person I told was my daughter, who said, I love you and I want you to do what makes you happy, which was a great reaction. And what I would have really expected, I told my son, and he said, it's a very first world problem. And then the next day he brought my Christmas present round with to Mum-Luka on it. So, because I had changed my name and then, as part of the process. I told friends, and then I did the big coming out on Facebook to the people I hadn't been able to talk to, and I was just incredibly lucky. Like, everyone wished me well. A few people asked genuine questions, and I also transitioned at work, and the feeling I got from them was that they were quite proud of themselves. So work was Auckland District Health Board, where I'd been a midwife on the high-risk team for, at that stage, 23 years. And so I became one of the 3 male midwives.
More of a minority then.
Yeah. And again, everyone was lovely, and they tried really hard. And I did also have one friend who I said, are you afraid you're going to lose me? And she said, lesbian friend of many years, probably the woman I would have considered my closest friend. And she said, well, you'll change and you'll have new friends. And of course she was right, but we've talked about it a lot since. I did fear I might lose that friendship, but I didn't. And I had sort of explained that I'm not, 68 years of being Caroline is not going to go away. This is just a whole other layer of joy that's on top. This is my gift to myself of authenticity, and I think she has seen, and other friends have seen, how I wasn't unhappy before, but I'm so much happier now, which I know you understand.
Stories like Luka's aren't as rare as you think. The changing social climate, advances in medical spaces, surfacing positive and accessible support groups are all steps that are making it easier and easier for all our trans whānau, not just youth.
I mean, people do ask why I left it so long. And that was just life, really. So I was in a 20-year relationship with a woman, and happy enough, in that time. I had kids, and they became teenagers and naughty teenagers, and just about the time I guess in my 60s, where I was starting to cut down my hours, I was working way more than full-time through much of that time and doing presenting and involved with with HIV and activism and NGOs, and so I was busy, not really thinking about me, just accepting I'm lesbian and that's cool. I'm female, I feel different from other lesbians on some level, but I haven't got the time to think about that too much. So my partner, who was quite a bit older, had said, talked about maybe retiring to, a lesbian retirement village or something, and in my head I thought, no. But I just didn't take the time to investigate that. And then just about the time, say in my early 60s, where I might have been thinking about it, my daughter had a little boy and she was on her own and they lived here, so I was busy being a grandparent. And it was really just that I had the time to start thinking about me and what I really wanted. And yeah, I wish now that I had done this 10, say, years ago, because it feels like I have started a wonderful new part of my life, and I'd like more time to do that. And at 10 years from now, I'm going to be elderly. I'm older now, and I have no problem with that, except that I guess I'd like more time to really have fun with this me. Yeah.
I really hope I'm as happy as Luca when I get to his age. And his story isn't all that uncommon. Older folks who may have thought something felt wrong for a long time are now starting to realise what that may be, thanks to more information about being transgender and gender diversity.
You are the expert on yourself. And if you trust those feelings and just take your time. Every transition journey is individual. There's no should about this. You don't have to have surgery, go on hormones, be a different gender to the one you are now.
Imagine having kids, then grandkids, a whole life really, but all the while something always felt off. For 40 years, that was the reality for Reverend Carl Proven. Yep, you heard right, I'm talking with a transgender reverend.
It's amazing how long you can keep a mask on for.
Yeah.
I think I kept mine on for 30 years. Yeah, that mask of being female and that mask of acting like that, even though inside you're slowly dying. Mm. And in the hypersensitive, gender-dividing world, I just wanted to fit in. I wanted to, this was where we had a great kids' church for our kids, this is where we had, this was community as we were trying to grow and become. Yeah. And I spent 20 years, the better part of 20 years, trying to prove that I fitted into that world. And that meant, for someone who knows they're wrong, I don't know, I'll put it this way, there's that sense of, if you know you're not there, you'll make sure you go to the extreme end of it to make sure people don't suspect any of this.
Absolutely. Mm.
And you stay there and you prove it constantly. And so even if you don't believe it, you go and say and do stuff that you don't believe or want to do, because it's almost like you feel you've got no other choice. And when you're young in a place, particularly around faith or particularly younger people, I'm only in my early 20s at this point, and as much wisdom as I thought I had, the truth is in your early 20s, you don't have as much wisdom as you think you have. And you're not as bulletproof strong as what you think you are.
Denouncing the church at 17, he joined the army, which you wouldn't exactly call a feminine space. When he came back and into the fray of a congregation, he met his now husband and got married in 2003. But inside the church again, he still didn't feel right.
When people started to make me female and change the way I dressed, change this person who walked in with a number 4 shaved haircut and army pants and a singlet on, and said, "We're going to make you female." I said, "Okay then," and I walked with it. Because I wanted to fit in.
Yeah. And I also wonder, like that's kind of why people are so surprised when you do finally come out, because you've unconsciously put yourself at the other end of the spectrum to where you really are, and so they see the mask.
I think, and I don't think that experience is unique to a faith journey. I think that people in any community that are trying to fit in, whether it be a cultural community or whatever, they're trying to mix with where they are as best they can.
Yeah.
And so you do what you do to survive. Not realising that it's actually destroying you on the inside. And like many hurt people, I learned to suppress my identity and to meet the need of the world I found myself in. A very narrow world, actually. It's not. So some people may say, "Well, why didn't you just leave?" It's because I didn't know where to go to.
Yeah.
I'm still learning how to not be military at this time as well, and that for anyone who's come out of the services, it takes you don't just leave and your mindset changes. You know, there's a sense of journeying through a lot of stuff. But I needed a supportive community, so I went and found one, and I fitted in. And I'll give them some positives here. They are a genuinely supportive community. Okay, it's and they genuinely try to be a supportive community.
It's human nature to want to fit in with the community around you. But unfortunately, that can lead young people into vulnerable positions where they have to suppress their true nature to fit into other people's concepts of acceptable. I'm talking about conversion therapy, a damaging, long-standing practice Carl found himself pulled into in his mid-20s.
Without going too much into how they did it, it was done with, and I'll give them this, there was a genuine want to help from their, in how they believed the world was, in terms of their belief system. The fact that I think that belief system is wrong and is actually damaging to people is currently in our media and actually needs to be brought out, the damage it does.
Yeah.
But what that basically did is it taught me to properly hate myself, to properly hate my body, and it put that false mask firmly back on my face. This is how you become a woman of God. And this is what it looks like. And this is the right places, and this is the how to be, and those other places in your past, well, they're bad and nasty and wrong.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't actually change anyone. It teaches you how to project the right image to pass. And hating yourself is not a way to life, is not a way to love, is not a way to acceptance. It is the complete opposite. And that's the danger in conversion therapy. I eventually left the Pentecostal church as a very broken person. I didn't want anything to do with the church, religion. I had no problem with that Christ part of me. None at all. That's been constant. But I was done with the church. I'm going to get a job in the industry I trained in, and bon voyage.
Kyle got a job outside of anything to do with religion, but it wasn't long until his strong sense of faith led him back into the church.
And I went through the 2-year minister intern training program, but the person who was my mentor, I'm pretty sure he picked it straight away and was absolutely fine with it.
So just from being with you and talking with you, he...
Yeah, and I did eventually tell him. He said, "Yeah, that's sweet as," but the
it's a great line for it.
yeah, but the advice I'd had from being open to some people was, "That's fine, just don't tell anyone." I had started transitioning in 2019. While I was still at that church. It had come to a crux point in our lives, and after talking with my spouse about it, we decided that I would start transitioning to be me properly.
Yeah.
To find that sense of wholeness again.
Kyle started hormones in November of 2019, and it continued into the first lockdown of 2020. A move to Auckland gave him the opportunity to start this new chapter of life.
So yeah, I look back on this journey and see that although it's not right, some of the stuff that I went through, although it's not good, and you'd never wish it on anyone, it has an outworking that I can now be a part of someone else's journey, to walk alongside them as they figure out their way through that space.
Yeah.
I know that this was the right space for me to come to. There's a place called Gender Dynamics in Tauranga.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, great place. And that's when I was asked by someone if I would baptise them. You know, a trans woman who wanted to be baptised. And that said to me, hang on a minute, there are people of faith here, there are trans Christians out there who want acceptance and faith, who are looking for that. And as a trans person of faith in the role of a minister, I could be a part of that journey for her.
He is now chaplain at a street ministry with a focus on minority communities. Now working in a place where he can openly be himself, he wants it to also be a space that parents feel welcomed.
So please walk with your young person as they grapple with this becoming space with them. Be their ally as they find a healthy spiritual space for themselves. It will look different to yours. Everyone's spiritual space looks different. But it's not against you. It's about them becoming themselves.
I really wanted to include Kyle and Luca in the series to give an idea about this whole trans life thing long term, and also to get a wiser perspective on all this. It's fine for it to feel fresh and new, but being able to have some long-term context about transition is important.
Can we get this long-term context of you in the car now then?
Of course, Ma. I was just bridging into the car chat.
I have to say, I really enjoy these drives up to the coffee shop.
Well, like listening to both of Luca's and Kyle's interviews, it really put into perspective like how it could have gone differently for me in terms of my transition.
Yeah.
Because it was a flip of a coin if I was going to come out.
Really?
The reality is that it just, my mental health got so bad that I had to come out. I felt like I just had to. Like there was no, it felt like the end of the road at the time.
Yeah.
Which is isn't a great feeling at 15.
No.
Yeah, but like listening, like I listened to Luca and he was just so cheerful. He was so happy. And what I love is that he doesn't regret his previous life. Like there are people who have transitioned, who have left their childhood behind. They've deleted photos. They don't talk to their family anymore, and that's not it's not a choice. But they've just had to leave it all behind, and Luca hasn't done that because like he already had this amazing life before transitioning.
Yeah.
And that I've always made sure not to delete photos. If, you know, even though it made me uncomfortable looking at them.
Yeah.
Even this past year, like we've been trying to recover a lot of the photos from my teenage years that weren't purposely deleted but were neglected, like on different like hard drives and.
Yeah, we put them away.
Yeah.
And I hid folders on my Facebook page. of the past.
Well, yeah, but like you've always had a photo of me in your room, like as a kid.
Oh yeah, like yeah, no, of course, and I still have that photo there. I don't think, like, for me, it's not. You are still the same person. It's just like I feel like removing that is almost like hiding who you were, because you were that, and it's not. You know, to have a go at you, but I love that child as much as I love the teenager you've become. So to hide it away, you know.
I'm 22.
I know, but you know, I love those photos. I was proud, as a proud mother can be. You know, I just don't think. I mean, I have it in my room. It's not like we have it in the lounge. You know.
No, but the thing is, I'm at that point now where I can look back at photos.
Yeah, it's funny because I never thought about that.
Really?
No, I don't know. I've always had a photo beside you of my bed, beside my bed.
Yeah, but I did make it clear, at least in the early days, that made me uncomfortable, because from my point, it felt like you were holding on to having the idea of having a daughter.
I think I put it away for a long time. I don't think it was out. I've only put it out in the last year or so.
Yeah.
I think I did put it away, and then once I realised you were way more comfortable, then I put it out.
Yeah, because it's hard, because when I was transitioning, and I know a lot of people feel this, paying attention to those photos or those memories feels like holding on to something that you know you have to let go in order to move forward.
Yeah, it's
in
funny.
a transition,
I didn't feel like
and
that,
it can
though.
make people feel dysphoric as well, because you're
yeah.
seeing. I used to see a photo of you know, even at 14, a 14-year-old me with, you know, long hair and very feminine, and I was always like smiling in those photos, but it always made me uncomfortable seeing that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't now, because I look back and I'm just like, oh, what a goof.
I mean,
but it can take people a long time.
That you had the courage to come out, because, you know, I had no idea. I mean, I knew you were struggling with stuff. I didn't know what it was. I knew you were on the cusp of you had depression, and so I was trying to work through that you had depression, but I just felt it was like teenage depression, which is what I had. So I was trying to keep you busy and, you know, keep you motivated, you know, that got you into, that was why we did rowing, really sacrificed a lot so you could do rowing and you could be physical, because I knew as long as you were physical and busy, you would feel better.
Yeah.
But I had no idea it had anything to do with you being uncomfortable with your body. And if you hadn't have come out, it would have been a totally different story, because I would never have known the pain that you'd gone through, or going through. And why be unhappy? Like, the moment you took tea, I knew without a doubt that everything was going to be okay, because you just came bounding out. And all this weight, you could just physically see the weight lift off. But I didn't recognize it before until afterwards. And then I was like, you know, you really were changed and muted, and not your, you know, there's so many things that I took a long time to piece together, but it didn't all come together until you were on the right path. And you know, for people like, you know, Luca and that, who have just kept it hidden for so long, or anyone who keeps it hidden for so long, you don't need to keep it hidden. It's okay to come out, and it's going to be a rocky road, but you are going to find people that love you and accept you, and you'll find a whole new way of living, and you'll be free. And you only have one life. Make the most of it, I think.
On the next episode of Let's Be Transparent, we take a look at what life looks like post coming out, what some of the challenges are day to day living as a transgender person, and what you should know to best navigate them. The final episode of the season is going to be a live record that puts your questions to our guests. So send your questions to joseph@transparentpodcast.nz. Also sign up to our website where we'll let you know how you can come along. And a big thanks to our guests Luca Bree, he, him, and Reverend Carl Provin, he, him. Thanks again for listening. I hope you're enjoying the series so far. If you've got any questions or want more information on anything you've heard, we've put together a whole list of resources from each episode on our website, transparentpodcast.nz. Let's Be Transparent is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find your podcasts. If you've enjoyed listening, then I'd be really grateful if you gave us a rating and leave a review. Let's Be Transparent was created and presented by me, Joseph Stockhausen, he, him, and my mum, Pauline Stockhausen, she, her. Our theme song was written and performed by Maxwell Apps, they, them. The executive producer was Tim Watkin, he, him. This podcast was produced and made by the team at Motuehe Group for Radio New Zealand. Also, huge thanks to Radio New Zealand's Liz Garton, she, her, for all of her awesome advice putting this all together.
This is more than just a kid and a parent. Let's be transparent.